Congratulations! You made it through the beginner course and you're getting very familiar with your Cessna 172, and you can confidently take it up and put it down gently where you're supposed to. Now we start doing more advanced maneuvers with your plane so you can handle these things as they arise. Some of the skills you will learn in this intermediate course include using your rudder pedals to taxi and fly, precautionary landings, emergency landings, short field takeoffs and landings, crosswind takeoffs and landings, slips, skids, and flapless landings, and finally cross-country flight planning and execution. To acquire these skills as realistically as possible, you'll certainly need a yoke, as in the beginner course, or at the very least a flight stick. They're cheaper, and they're like fighter jets and experimental planes. Home-built planes use flight sticks. They're easier, cheaper to put in. And they're more responsive too. Certainly as you snap them left and right, you can do rolls and things like that. We don't do rolls in our Cessna 172. So you can use a flight stick, but it is recommended that you get a yoke because it's more realistic in all the planes you're probably going to fly. All right, so not only the yoke, but it's best to learn with a yoke and your rudder pedals also for the floor. So let me just talk about a couple other things. You can buy an elevator trim that attaches to your desk, like this one, or buy a yoke that has an elevator trim built in, like this one. But don't be fooled by the mechanical trim wheel on most basic yokes. They only adjust the springs in the yoke, and they aren't used for elevator trim. You will remember in the beginner course we use the acronym PAT or ATP, depending on climbing or descending. In both cases, the T stood for trim. We had to trim it. And it's an important step with flying without the stress of trying to hold the yoke against a certain position, against the forces of the wind. That can get very tiring. We always trim to the attitude we wish, and even fly hands-off afterwards. If you cannot trim it with hardware, you can still use your mouse as a backup. You can use your mouse on the elevator trim in your simulator and use your mouse wheel to move it up or down. But you will also need to buy or borrow the rudder pedals for this course. They also have a USB connection for your computer, and your flight simulator should automatically recognize them, or we'll have to go into settings and make sure. The rudder pedals are in all airplanes and in all real planes. You'll use them from your first lesson. I designed these courses so you wouldn't have to buy everything all at once, and you could concentrate on each control and master it first. Now we introduce rudder pedals to complete the realism of learning to fly, the skills of learning to fly. So with this newfound piece of hardware, I need to brief you on how to use them properly. You will get enough practice in all phases of flight, but start with taxiing around the tarmac using rudder pedals only. That will be covered in our first module while we are refamiliarizing ourselves with taxi and takeoff procedures. In this course, we are starting from Toronto Island Airport in Toronto, Canada, as in the beginner course, because it's familiar. But when we return from the Claremont practice area, we will be returning to Buttonville Airport and remain there as our base for all future lessons in this intermediate course. This airport is north of Toronto Island Airport. It's a very busy airport for jets, float planes, helicopters, and a busy radio frequency. It is said to be the gateway to the north, or to cottage country, where float planes and executive jets get away for the weekend or a holiday. This is also home to Toronto Airways, the busy and active flight school that I also attended and rent planes from to this day. From here, we are closer to the smaller airstrips to the north, where we will practice short field landings and takeoffs. It's also good practice to have them to navigate and return home to a different airport for each course. Good luck, and as always, send me any questions about this course and the beginner course. Once we learn these skills and it becomes second nature, this becomes a whole lot of fun. Let's get started.